Products of War Podcast, Episode 6.
This is a very special episode for us today. We got a guest in the studio with us today. Not actually in the studio. Actually, we're all on different coasts. So we got Tom over there near Seattle. He loves to be called that he's in Seattle. And then we got Sergeant First Class Ryan, who is our very first interviewee. Where are you located at right now, Ryan?
I'm located in the Triangle area of North Carolina, just north of Fort Bragg.
All right, great. So we got all the coast covered over here. So we'd like to start off just by first saying thanks, man. Thanks for coming in and thanks for doing the interview with us. You're, like I said earlier, you're the very first interviewee, so pretty interesting. Tom, you want to give us a quick just run through how you met Ryan?
Yeah, we actually in processed at Fort Hood together, and same time we were making fun of the same people, and he was looking for a roommate because he was a geo bachelor, and I was looking for a roommate because I'm a cheap ass, and basically we ended up being roommates until we deployed the first time, so became good friends after that.
That's good. That's good deal. Good deal. So Ryan, I think the best way to start this off, man, is just give us a little synopsis of who you are, kind of where you grew up, what made you decide to go to the Army, and and then we'll start it from there.
All right, not a problem. So originally from a small suburb of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm about 20 minutes out of downtown, right in steel mill / railroad country. Joined the Army right out of high school. Was actually delayed entry for a year, so I joined when I was 17, shipped when I like a month after I turned 18. I always knew I wanted to do military for a while, but I never knew it would be a career. My initial plan being going into an uncharted territory essentially was do your first term and make a decision from there. But I had all intention of getting out and being a police officer. But 23 years later, I'm still here in the military, so plans don't always go as they're supposed to.
Yeah, no kidding. So you went in when you were 18.
Yep, right out of high school. Like I said, I was delayed entry for about a year, and then a month after I graduated high school, I was at lovely Fort Sill, Oklahoma, for basic and AIT.
Awesome. And what was your initial job?
So my initial job, I came in, and like most kids that join the Army, you have these huge aspirations, but then you get kind of stuck at MEPS, and they kind of talk you into something you didn't want. So heading up for infantry, and I ended up being a 13 Romeo, which is a firefinder radar operator. That's counterfire radar. I did that for my first 3 years. So my first assignment in Germany, I was a Romeo, and that was my first deployment to Bosnia. And then when I went to Fort Drum, I kind of knew I didn't want to do the 13 Romeo thing anymore, and I was kind of fell in personality-wise with the other 13 Foxes in my first unit. So the first chance I got, I hopped the bus onto the Fister world.
So yeah, you got introduced to some men, and then you started hanging out with them.
You could look at it that way, but anyone in the military can tell you Fisters attract a certain personality type, and I kind of fit with that. And I'm not going to lie. Back when I went to the recruiters and they showed me sweet Laserdisc videos, and they showed me a video where shit blown up, and I was like, fuck yeah, I'll take that. When I go back and look at that video afterwards, it was like, shit blown up, paratroopers, shit blown up, small picture of the radar, shit blown up again. I was like, oh, that's badass. I'll fucking take it. And I get $2,000 bonus. That's more than I've ever seen in my fucking life.
It's that little bit of money that always gets you in it.
And back then, I think my base pay was like $782, so that was like 2 months paycheck plus of the Army. I was like, fuck yeah, I'm balling now.
They hooked me with that bonus too, man. I think I got a sweet, cool $3,000 before taxes.
Woo! Yeah, they don't tell you about the 22% taxes. Like, wait, I'm only getting $1,300.
Yeah,
yeah. So and half of that's over the next 3 years.
Yeah, they split it up on you.
Oh, to be fair, I found an old fucking LES like from fucking '99, and I think I was making $325 for 2 weeks or something like that.
Oh man. Yeah, but
I save those, and I constantly bring them up to show the young soldiers and show my daughter, 'cause she's in the military, when she's complaining about her paycheck. She's an E-2 making like $1,500 a month. I didn't make $1,000 a month until I made E5. So times change.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy how that works out, man. You know what they got me on is they showed a picture of a tank jumping a ramp and being like 6 feet in the air, and I was like, yo, that looks awesome, because I rode dirt bikes and four wheelers. I was like, yo, that'd be awesome. And then whenever I got to the real world and figured out that if you do that to the tank, it's destroyed and you'll be working on it forever. So
Yeah, they're gonna show you breaking track for the next 8 hours.
oh, dude, I mean, it's so much maintenance if you do that, man. And whoever the driver is, I mean, that's broken disc or something. You know, they're jacked up inside of that vehicle as well. So, you know what I thought was interesting though is going to. What did you think about going into the basic training at 18? I went when I was about 20, so I had a couple years of experience. But like, what was your initial thought whenever you went into basic training?
You know, it's a culture shock no matter what. I don't know how they do it at Benning or at Knox or anywhere else, but at Fort Sill they kind of scam you in because you get there and you go to replacement and you have all the drill sergeants on their cool down period. So they do, you know, the 2 years online, then 2 or 3 months over replacement. So it's an elevated stress, but it's not basic training. So you think, oh man, this isn't that bad. And then when they get you across the railroad tracks and you get real basic, it's a 100% culture shift. But if you go in the military expecting the military, it's not outside what you see. If you see, you know, Full Metal Jacket or any other basic training movie, you expect to get yelled at. You expect to do tons of PT. It wasn't that bad.
I would agree with that. You know, it's kind of, you know, the initial shock is always something fucking to get used to. But I kind of felt at the end, like, you know, that was kind of, it was difficult, but I wish it was harder. You know what I mean? Just looking for a little more challenge. It seemed,
You know,
I don't know.
I would agree with you, but during that time, you also got 16 weeks of being conditioned to it. So you're looking at it through the eyes of someone who's been through it already. If you'd have been like day one person inserted on day 8, your opinion would not be the same.
Probably not. Probably not at all.
Yeah.
I would just like to see more people wash out. That's all I would have fucking. Because I mean, you have a few for sure, but I'd like to see like a larger fail rate.
You know, there are courses like that in the military, like Rappel Master for one. We started with 75 people. We graduated 21. There's tons of courses like that, but it becomes a numbers game. And despite what the drills want to do or what the recruits want to do, they have to make their number.
Oh, so, no, I know I've seen that for sure because I was actually I was an MOS instructor at like the height of the fucking when the fucking Iraq kicked off. So like fucking what, like fucking was it 05?
Probably 05 to 07.
Yeah, it was 05. Basically, they were fucking calling people back. Like, I was there, and there was fucking guys that they pulled back from. They didn't have their 8-year commitment in, so they pulled a couple guys back. I was in my first unit with that got out, and then came back in because they fucking gave them a letter.
Hey, but you got to read that contract tight. They tell you your first term's 3 to 4 years, whatever you enlist for, but you have that 8 years inactive reserve time.
Oh, no, I asked about that when I fucking signed up. I saw that fucking 8. I'm like, no, I'm signing up for 4. They're like, oh, yeah, I know. This is going to be 4 of inactive reserve.
Yeah, don't worry about that. They'll never call you back.
Don't worry about that little guy. Don't worry about that little guy. So, Ryan, you said that you've known that you wanted to go into the military. How did you know that at such a young age?
It's just the whole thing, you know. When you grow up in a blue collar town, you're always looking for something besides the blue collar work. And always been a fan of war movies and spending time outside in the woods, like shooting. So it's just something you naturally want to try, kind of challenge yourself.
Yeah, and you
Plus,
said
I didn't have the best grades in high school, so I had minimal options on what I was doing because I was all about drinking and partying. So college was kind of right out. So at least at first, unless I do like 13th and 14th grade at the community college, and I didn't want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, so you moved around. You said you went to Bosnia, and you want to just give us like kind of just give a brief overview of what you were doing in Bosnia. You know, and not trying to get into anything in particular, but just kind of what was the mission whenever you went over there.
So it's kind of surprising because my first unit, you know, you don't know shit about the army. So you get your first orders, and I came down orders for Germany. And I was like, what the fuck is Germany? How am I going to get there? No clue. You know, 18 years old, been nowhere but home, freaking, and basic in IT. So I show up to Germany, and half the unit's already gone. The other half is packing their duffel bags. So you're a new guy, and everyone's leaving the fucking unit. Like, oh, yeah, we're going to Bosnia. So you're going to do your 2-week training, and then you'll meet us downrange. And then the fucking barracks cleared the fuck out. So like me and a couple other guys were the late arrivers. We're kind of left in Germany. 1E7 was in another unit as the rear DNCO, trying to get us through all the training to get downrange. Ended up pretty good, though. And, you know, you miss that connection with your unit at first because they're all gone. Did the training, then got flown down to Sarajevo and inserted down there where my unit was still fucking around with the Sava River Bridge up north. So we kind of beat him in the country just because where we got forward deployed.
Well, how long were you over there?
I was there for about 10 months because I got there a month late. So it's kind of weird driving into it. Like I said, the military is a culture shock, but going into a war zone is another culture shock because you see things on movies. Now you're in a country ravaged by war off and on forever, and then you show up right after their war. Driving through Sarajevo, you got skyscrapers collapsed, bullet holes and everything, landmines everywhere. All the grave recovery people were there. We did a lot of guards on that shit. Guarding was recovering and finding people. Just a huge culture shock. Just to see, leaving the U.S. and going to a war-torn country is always something completely different.
Yeah. I always tell people whenever they say something about it, they're like, oh yeah, I've seen it in the movies or something. And I always tell them, but what you don't sense is the smell of those places. Like the smell of war is just a different beast in itself.
It's the smell, it's the sounds, I want to say it's the atmosphere. Even though the fires are out and the bodies aren't there, it hangs heavy on everything. You feel it. It's hard to describe unless you've been there before. But imagery is one thing, but when you combine everything together, it's something totally different.
Yeah, yeah. And Tom, you were over in Germany as well, weren't you? You deployed?
I was. Yeah, that's where I deployed to Iraq the first time.
Okay.
Yeah. Over in Friedberg. I don't know where were you at, Ryan, over there?
I was down in Bavaria and Bamberg. Military at the time. Closed down. That doesn't exist anymore, but it was a great place to be, especially in the mid 90s when, a few years after the wall came down, they were just resurging everything. So it was great.
Yeah. A lot of those small posts closed down over there. I'm not even sure what's left. Probably a couple fucking big ones. And
yeah, it's just, once again, a shock again, because you don't know what a fort looks like when you join the military. So, Fort Sill wasn't what I pictured as a fort. I pictured like a G.I. Joe fucking base, but that shit didn't happen. Not houses and buildings. And then, you go to a caserne in Germany, and our caserne was all World War I German barracks retrofitted. So to do the PT test, we had to run around the outside of base once. So it was small as shit, but it was nice.
Yeah, that's what Friedberg was. It was a single lap around for your PT test.
Yep, right through traffic.
Pretty much. Heading downtown, look at the castle, make a left.
That's exactly how it was in Bamberg. Getting overseas was great for someone who's never left Pennsylvania prior to joining the military. So, you got to tour everywhere on the weekends that you had off. You could drive to Switzerland to go ski in Austria, Paris. Anything's a 6-hour car trip away. So it was great.
Yeah, roughly the equivalent of leaving the state,
Yeah, but they don't tell you, when you get there. And I did my 10 months in Bosnia out of a 2-year tour, and then you'll do a month in Graf, a month in Hornsfeld, back for 2 weekends. Then you do it again and again and again.
Yeah,
oh, wow.
That was the biggest thing with fucking Germany is we went right to that fucking gunnery and we did the training. What it was Hohenfels and then fucking Grafenwehr back to back, and we did it in fucking March and.
So it's muddy and wet.
Yeah, and I also came from fucking Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Which was not muddy and wet.
Yeah. It's muddy and wet. It's just 90 degrees at that time.
90% humidity.
Close to 30. So it was a little different.
Yeah, I never got to go overseas, other than just to Iraq. So it's always weird, man, talking to you guys that went to Korea or Germany. That the op tempo over there, I was like, that doesn't even sound fun. Really, you guys always have them really cool stories about getting out the couple weekends that you got to, but just going into the field all the time, man. I was like, I like going to the field, but I don't know. I just never had the opportunity to do it. So
I think a lot of it comes on the timing of the military at the time. It was post, Somalia, it's post Desert Storm, and we're just getting ready for the next thing. So it was constantly in a training cycle. Especially being in Germany, you had the AMF 1 and 2 teams, and we were on AMF 1. So that's an Allied Mobile Force team. So you were constantly, if you weren't with the U.S., you were with multinational forces prepping for the next big thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess that's good training, though. That's if you want to get into the military and you want to make a career out of it. I had a cousin that he was coming in, and he's like, I think I'm going to get deployed to Iraq. And I was like, that's where you want to go, man. Just get to your unit and go. That way, at least you know what you're going to train for.
Yeah. It's better than do that in this current op tempo than it was back in the day when you were just constantly in a state of readiness for who knows what, waiting for the next big thing to kick off.
Yeah, yeah. So you went to Germany, and then you came back and you went to Fort Drum. Is that correct?
Yep. So back in the day, first time came out with the purse tempos and read your name and your orders off. So they read my name off, and I didn't even know it was coming down in orders. Once again, dumbass soldier, E1 3 E4, no clue about the Army, and they call your name like, oh, I'm going somewhere, and they say Fort Drum, and everyone's just shaking their head, and you get all the boos, and I'm like, what the fuck is the deal with Fort Drum? And no one could tell me like, oh man, Fort Drum sucks. And they're just saying that because they didn't like snow, and it snows all the time in Drum. But honestly, ended up being a blessing because it's not far from Pittsburgh, 4-hour drive if you're driving fast. But it's a great unit, man. Tons of time training. Had stellar leaders up there. Had a great time overall for the time I spent up there. And it was definitely a reintroduction to the Army, going from 3rd ID and 1st Infantry Division, both of them because the unit swapped over in Germany, to 10th Mountain Division, which is light infantry. That is another culture shock, even within the military.
Well, but also the overseas armies are different. Even, Germany and Korea, they're fucking, the whole attitude of the fucking units are different over there.
I think that goes within even installation. You have different environments depending on what your job is, who you support, and what echelon you fall under.
Fair enough.
I guess it is what it is. That's just my first introduction to 18th Airborne Corps. So you went to, from 2 heavy divisions essentially to a light, and that mentality is completely different. Even you, Tom, can say that going both heavy and light for scouts. It's just a world of difference.
Yeah, well, we were We were the 18th Airborne Corps fucking recon element at 2nd ACR when I was there.
Yep. So you get all that fun stuff. And, going from a heavy unit where PT is not emphasized to a light unit when, hey, congratulations, it's your first day in the unit. Tomorrow you're doing a 20K, and then it snows, and they call you up, and they're like, hey, bring your snowshoes tomorrow. I'm like, what the fuck are snowshoes? Oh, you'll get them tomorrow. So your first introduction to snowshoes is 65 pounds and a 20K.
Yeah.
Super good learning curve.
Yeah.
And you got those good GI snowshoes where you got to step like 4 feet ahead so you don't step on the other one.
Yep, and then 4 feet ahead and 2 feet to the side, and then they also weigh 17 pounds each. So that's super great way.
Yeah, I still got 2 sets of them.
They're great for what they are, but once again, more stuff about the Army you learn is that alpha mentality kicks in. Everyone tries to step on your snowshoes to make you fall over and not be able to get back up. So your 20K road march on snowshoes for the first time becomes your first 20K run on snowshoes. So it is what it is.
Yeah. Again, man, I never experienced any of that. I was on a tank, man, so I rode on my weapon. So we was riding around.
That's okay. I mean, that's always fun too. But like I said, drum was great for me. Just up there, I had my first chance to change, and I switched from Romeo to 13 Fox, and did some OJT up there before going to AIT. So had some time in the job before I actually reclassed.
Oh, nice.
So it was decent.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I wish I would have been able to switch. Maybe not. I would have wanted to stay combat arms, but I'd have liked to have seen something else, after a while. So it's pretty cool that you got to see the world a little bit more, How do you think that, so you've been in for 23 years. Do you think that just being able to be moving around and having different jobs and seeing different parts of the Army whenever you were younger, did that help you? I mean, did that give you a better understanding of what you were getting into for a career?
I did. I think it helps you in any rank. So a good example of that is my transition from Drum to Fort Bragg. So when I reclassed, I re-enlisted for Fort Bragg. So I came down here, and everyone knows the back at Bragg guys. Even the heavy guys have seen them back in the Army. The people that come here, stay here. It's the equivalent of Fort Hood guys. You never leave. Maybe you're in Korea, but you come back, and you fail to acknowledge there's more of the Army. So the more you transition, the more you experience, the more you build your kit bag. And it makes you a more developed soldier, leader, and helps the rest of the force out because you share those TTPs that you learn in other places.
Yeah, see, and I think that's what was lacking in my career a little bit too, man, is I stayed in the same unit for almost like 7 years just because it was on the same rotation cycle, So I'd come home if I reclass or if I went somewhere else, instead of leaving in 12 months or 14 months, I'd be leaving in 7. So I just stayed with that unit just because of the deployment cycle, So it was I always enjoyed having other people come on, like whenever we get new E7s that came from somewhere else. It was always interesting to see how they did things over there and would kind of change up the policies that we had at Fort Hood, and make them better.
Definitely.
I ran into a issue like later on once they really cranked up the fucking global war on terror. Is like you'd come back, like 4 people would be able to PCS, and then they'd put a fence around the unit and they wouldn't let anybody go, and then you'd have to. Like I escaped a couple times by fucking re-upping to fucking get a duty station just to change it up, but like they wouldn't let anybody leave.
See, but there's also a good part to that. You gain lose the fresh ideas, but you maintain that cohesion of a fighting unit who's been together through training, through deployment, through training. So it's definitely I can see a plus on both sides, and it brings it to a tighter unit.
Yeah, but I was just looking to fucking get out of that. I'm kind of a fucking rolling stone anyway, man, and I gotta fucking just go and fucking move. And like after I got out, I've been here for fucking 8 years, dude. It's actually kind of fucking driving me crazy.
yeah. Dude, I'm 3 years into my place, man, and I'm like, yo, I gotta get going. I'm 3 years in.
I was at Bragg for 8 years, so 99 to 07. Oh, wow. But on there, I PCS 3 times on post because that's the Bragg Mafia. You want to stay here, you're up on 2 years. Hey, go across the street. Here's your orders, and you now reset your dwell time.
And you also,
so I had some change.
You also deployed to Iraq from Bragg, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
OIF 1. So that was a funny situation because we were sharing a building with our sister unit. So we had 2 small units in one building. Each unit was about 40 men. So it was small, tight units, and they were cohesive together because we were a unique target or mission set. And then they got orders to deploy with the Marines. So we were pissed in our unit, and we had to give them all our good gear. We did the 1-for-1 swaps on property book to make them 100% and pushed them out. And the next week, we came down on 72-hour recall to deploy. Oh. So we had all the broke equipment. We're gone.
Dunn gave up some good guys. Fun.
But yeah, we deployed straight out of Bragg, C-17s, flew straight into Kuwait, and started moving to the old Camp Pennsylvania, the stage for the invasion.
Oh, yeah. So me and Tom talked about just kind of the suck of Kuwait a little bit before on one of the episodes. Is there anything that sticks out of your mind at Kuwait? I mean, you've already been to war once, so it's kind of it's not 100% new to you, but Kuwait is definitely a new experience. Is there anything that stands out?
It is, because the Bosnia was a peacekeeping force, so you're kind of referees. This was, and the intent was combat, so there's an unknown going into it. But once again, the old army, you train nonstop, and you were confident about your skills. The first thing that comes to my mind is after spending the 14 hours on a freaking aircraft to get to Kuwait, was when we landed, the ramp came down. It was February of 2003. And when that ramp came down, it was like opening your oven on Thanksgiving Day, and the heat hit me in the face. I was like, oh, fuck no. And it was like 130 degrees at 2 in the morning, and you knew life was going to be extremely freaking rugged.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all. I think that usually that's the thing that comes
You know
out.
what I thought about fucking Kuwait the other day, man, is those fucking shitty plastic fucking plates you used to get at the fucking chow hall there.
Yeah.
You remember how fucking thin those were, and they were like half greasy already before you even had food on them?
Yeah, I honestly don't remember that.
Yeah, that was my biggest fucking thing.
I know for us, we were there and we prepped to get ready fairly quick, and then we pushed outside the LSAs to start firing at deep targets into Iraq before LD. So I was only on a camp for a couple of days before we went and started living like savages in the desert.
Lucky you.
So yeah, so that was kind of good.
Yeah, it's probably better to get away from that because just around them camps down there, man. The days are just miserable anyway. Unless you're actually training, then you're just sitting around with your thumb up your ass anyway. So going and getting after it would probably be the best thing to do. So you said you were still firing. Yeah, I mean, you were already getting after it a little bit before you went over into the border into Iraq. I'm always curious about like, what was your thoughts a little bit about going into Iraq? Like whenever you knew you're putting yourself in actual harm's way, do you remember what was going through your mind or let's back up a little bit one more time. And what rank were you at this time?
I was a senior staff sergeant unit, and I was the headquarters platoon sergeant as well as the counterfire NCO.
Okay. So now you're in a leadership position and you got 18, 19-year-old kids that you're dragging along, over the border. What's kind of going through your mind as you're going into the war?
Just to do the right thing. I mean, it was a unique situation for anyone who was on the ground attack convoys on the way in because we were GAC 8 Serial 3. So when they came down with the movement orders and the convoy briefs, they gave us a box of maps. Some were in Arabic, some were in English, some were British maps, and like, congratulations, here's the grid where you're going. And you can't even read every map. So right away as a leader, you're like, shit. You're trying to get your shit straight so your guys maintain the confidence with you to push in. But my thoughts were never on me. It was only on my guys the entire way through it. From pushing out, making sure they were straight, making sure their PCIs, PCCs were good, making sure they're where they were supposed to be, doing what they were supposed to do, and ready.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's like I went over my first time as a private, so I remember my thoughts a little bit. But then my subsequent 3 after that, I don't remember anything about it. And I think that you just nailed this because I was thinking about everybody else. I wasn't thinking, and I've never even thought that before. Like I've never known that. I've always thought it was like the concussions, right? Like you have that short-term memory loss. And I was like, yo, that's the concussions, man. That's why I can't remember that. But now, that's the first time I've ever thought about it I was just thinking about everything else instead of myself.
And that's the way it is. Your mind, I tell people all the time, being deployed is hard, but it's easy in a way because all the bullshit of your life falls aside. You are one mission set over there, and that's doing your job and taking care of your guys.
Yeah.
So without those little bite in the ass things every day you handle with real life, life gets real simple. It's not as easy. It's just simple, and you can focus where you need to be focused.
Mostly, unless your mustache is out of regs.
All I have one.
That's another
shit I read for us. I mean, there's times that I was moving in just Ranger panties. I had a mohawk for a while. I definitely had handlebars on my mustache, just straight Hulk Hogan type mustache. So it was not good.
Actually, you're right. OAF1, dude, I had the flavor saver below the fucking mustache. Like I grew that out until it got just like so long that they couldn't ignore it anymore, and like just fucking shave that thing.
Your priorities were different over there because you were so focused on moving forward and killing the enemy. Like we had 2 liters of water a day. That was for personal hygiene, for drinking, for everything else. So like week 1, I quit trying to wash any laundry, threw all my socks and drawers away, and went fucking savage the whole time over there.
Yeah.
And I think I went 72 days before I got my first shower. So when you don't shower for 72 days, baby wipes are gone on day 4 because we came over in 2 duffels on a ruck on an aircraft.
Yeah.
Your just priorities change. You start letting things slip that people worry about later on. It didn't affect the mission at all. As long as you kept shaved so your pro mask could fit, you were set.
But it turns out you didn't even need the pro mask.
Well, so the funny thing about that is when they were firing the Scuds and we pick them up on the counterfire radar, you go to chemical alert, you're putting your mask on and off 10 times a day. There's times where we would, be masked up and driving, and we pass a convoy coming the other way, going back for resupply with no mask on. So they'd mask up, we take ours off. And you pass somebody else again with your mask on again. So you mask back up again. It was just constant chaos, just the din of battle.
Yeah, well, I just can't recall any casualties due to fucking chemical weapons.
No, there wasn't casualties this time. I do remember the first time that the Scud alarms went off. Hopped out of the cot, sleeping bag laying on top of you, and the cots were set next to the vehicles in the desert. No crossbars, just like a shitty hammock with sides. And hopped off the vehicle, put my mask on, rolled out, weapon up and ready. And the first thing I said, I looked at my guys, was like, I fucking beat you. Because I was just worried about getting a mask on in 9 seconds. So it's a good time.
Yeah. That spirit of competition, man, that keeps a lot of people going and moving. It definitely keeps it going. So how long did you deploy for that time?
A little bit over 12 months for that one. So we're in a unique situation that we were a slice element out of Bragg. So I went in under 5th Corps, attached to a brigade. Then I got sliced out to 101st for a while. Came back, went to 82nd for a while, which was home force. Then went to 3rd ACR. And that was my first experience with 3rd ACR. I was with 2-3 when they took Objective Redskins, which became TQ Airfield.
Okay, yeah.
And from there, I went over to 1st ID for a while. Then I went up to 4th Squadron, 3rd ACR, over to Regimental Headquarters, 3rd ACR, then out to 1st Squadron on the Syrian border with Tiger Regiment or Tiger Squadron. And that's where I was when I started in 3rd ACR when I got assigned there in 07.
Wow. So
the entire time I had my platoon separate from my unit. And that's a lot for a staff sergeant to handle is, you have half the unit and you're 300 miles away from your echelon.
Yeah. Yeah, because especially in an OIF-1, man, that's fighting and scraping for everything already, even within a unit, let alone being the attachment to a unit.
Yep, beg, borrow, steal. That's it.
Yeah,
and most of it came down to stealing. So,
so after you did your 12 months, right? Let's talk a little bit about just going back home, right? So now you've been in war, you've been firing live weapons, you've been engaging the enemy. And well, hang on. First, I think I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Let's talk about how did you react, or what was your thoughts whenever you first got into combat, like your actual first firefighter or first sign of, oh shit, this is really war. Can you give us an example of that?
It always comes to you as a surprise when you're expecting it, but you don't realize what's going to happen until it happens. People always say time slows down, time speeds up. You tend to get focused on a specific thing, but it's all that together. It doesn't happen at one time, one way. You get all that within the first 30 seconds. And it seems surreal. It doesn't seem like it's happening because it's not how it played out in your head as you were training. and it takes you a while for your train to kick in. There's that 30 seconds to a minute where you're a complete ass clown, and then you finally get your head straight and get to where you're supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely that's how it was for me as well. I was a ass clown. I think I was just a kid that was so scared, man, that I didn't know, scared and nervous and wanting to get into war that I didn't know what I was doing. So
I think it comes into, you want to do what you're supposed to do, but you don't understand the gravity of what you're doing until the bullets start flying, until you take the contact, and and then you realize you're firing like any freaking Afghani or Iraqi is, over your head, over the vehicle, improper position, no sight picture, freaking. Meanwhile, you can't even reach your hand mic. You're trying to get radio calls up to higher or call for fire, and you're just stammering over yourself. And it's a learning process. No one's calm and cool collected on the first time.
No, definitely not.
So even on the mic, the first time I had to do a call for fire for real, I was going 100 miles a minute, and I talk fast anyway. So when I go into turbo mode, it becomes unlegible to anybody. So the guy on the FTC was like, "Just calm down, man. It's not important. It's not that bad." I'm like, "Nah, dude, it's fucking bad. I'm taking contact. I got this and this." He goes, "No, man, just calm down." And I got in a fight with him on the radio because he wasn't taking me serious when he's back at the FTC. But it is what it is.
Yeah,
he had a point.
Yeah, definitely being able to stay calm. Like
it takes that sometimes.
I always tried to tell my guys not to just be yelling on the mic anyway, right? Like, just don't come over, and if it's serious, you can use some aggression a little bit, but just in general, don't be doing that, because now I'm not going to know if it's for real or not.
Yeah, it doesn't add anything to the emphasis.
No, it doesn't.
Right. It doesn't. Like I said, your first time doing it, you're now trying to maintain proper radio procedures. You're trying to get your data correct. You're trying to get this up in a timely manner. And it just, once again, you're moving troops, you're taking fire, you're returning fire. It's a lot to manage at one time.
Yeah. Yeah. And you haven't breathed. You haven't taken a breath in 2 minutes. Yeah. like when you stop, you're like, when was the last time I breathed?
And then. And then, to be honest, half the time, you don't even know where the fire is fucking coming from.
No.
I knew where it was because I saw the shooters, so I definitely knew where they were coming from.
Well, then you got luckier than I, because I can't remember a time actually taking fire where I seen somebody point a rifle at me and fucking shoot. And I've been shot at fucking plenty of fucking times. It's just never fucking like, oh, that's the guy I need to fucking kill, or and even have a good fucking idea where the direction of fucking this shit's coming from half the time.
Yeah.
To be fair, this wasn't in downtown Missoula. This was in our push into up towards Karbala, and it was 3 dudes in a single compound, rural compound with PKMs. So you could see them. There was nowhere else that fire could have come from.
That's great.
And we saw the heads before they initiated fire, and then muzzle flashes. So that's a unique situation. It's not like getting engaged in Fallujah or Ramadi when you're like, oh fuck, any of these windows on the left side of the street. It was, I guess, the best way to take first contact.
Yeah. Well, like I said, the only fucking contact I've taken has been in fucking heavy fucking urban areas. So that's fucking
which is the worst way to get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because the only time I've ever seen them in heavy combat is when I'm looking at that alley and somebody steps over, and I'm like, hang on, is that a weapon? Oh shit, taking fire. So I mean, and then by the time you registered in your brain, they're back behind the wall and a block away. So
yep.
So it's definitely
using their little tunnel system and their keyholes to get around and maneuver around you.
Yeah. You know what? I think that like whenever I was there, and I went over in April in 03, and that year over there, the contact was, you could definitely feel as Iraq went on, the training of the enemy got better. Right. So like I always tell people that, like, jokingly, that we killed all the stupid ones, like the first roundabout, we killed all the dumb ones, and now they've gotten better and better and better. I know you deployed again, and we're kind of skipping forward, but did you notice that? Like, was there a difference between the enemy that you were fighting throughout your career?
So it's hard for the second time, because when I was in 3rd ACR, I started as the 1st Squadron Fire Support NCAO, then I moved up to take over a regiment like 3 months into that deployment. So I had 3 months of maneuver in 07 before I took up the regimental headquarters for the rest of the deployment. So I had very little experience down there. I wouldn't say it was a better trained enemy or a worse trained enemy. It was a different type of enemy. When we pushed in on the initial assault, you had a lot of organized military still fighting you. So a lot of defensive fire positions we ran into, a lot of military forces using Soviet doctrine. The insurgency rose up in the middle and towards the end. But I think you only tend to remember the dumb ones that you kill, and then when you hit a guy who is semi-prepared, it kind of shocks you. But you don't remember they're a very adaptive enemy, both there and Afghanistan, because they are technologically deficient from us. So they have to be adaptive in order to stay alive. So they have a real sharp learning curve.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, man. That makes perfect sense. So that was skipping ahead just a little bit, but so you got home from your first deployment, and then you went to Fort Hood.
Yeah, so I hate to cut it off. It's just the way the conversation runs. But back
Yeah,
to the redeployment. So coming back from that, it was kind of weird coming back after being gone for 12 months. And at the time, I was a single parent. So I had a 4-year-old daughter that it was at my parents' house the whole time.
Mm.
So you come back and reintegrate as, a father from being a platoon sergeant and being a team leader over there to being a parent all of a sudden again. And that's a whole different bag of problems to deal with.
Yeah.
But that too, I also tried to maintain my operational tempo as a garrison soldier that I did before I deployed. So, drinking every night, partying, and I just couldn't do the same thing I did. Even as a parent, kid goes to babysitters, party 2 nights a week, or even every night at the house, have a couple beers, wash out of my boots. I couldn't do that no more. I just gave up all drinking right then because it wasn't, I don't want to say important anymore, but I just couldn't do it anymore. I didn't like not being in control and not having 100% wits about me anymore.
That's probably a good policy.
It is, and I was a power drinker before that, so I have tons of stories about that. Just coming up that time in the Army, the 90s through the early 2000s, it was just part of life, and it was me before I joined the Army. So it was just a complete change to not do that anymore.
Yeah. So
and to stop dipping, stop smoking, stopped everything after that.
Man, I'm trying to quit that smoking still, man. I'm fighting it every day, man. Fighting it. So you went through. So you did your first deployment, and then you come back home, and what happened? I know you injured yourself in some sort of way.
Sure did. So
I
was templated to deploy again the following year in 2005 to Afghanistan, but I got into a motorcycle accident and I shattered my pelvis into 8 pieces. So that was like 5 days before deployment. So they wouldn't let me go being in a wheelchair and having a bunch of plates and pins in me.
Jesus.
Oh, trust me, I fought it. That's what they call a combative patient. I was trying to go. So it kind of took me off that, and I was pissed about that for a long time. So I took over after I got back from convalescent leave. I took over as rear detachment NCO, which is the best job in the Army. And that's sarcasm if you didn't catch that. For a unit who had people in Iraq and in Afghanistan. So it was a whole bunch of clusterfuck with that.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm just curious, what was your recovery time after breaking you said you broke your pelvis in 5 places?
No, I shattered it to 8 pieces.
8 pieces, Jesus.
Plus broke both bones of my left arm, super bad head injuries. I had to go through speech therapy and all that shit. So I was in a wheelchair for 6 months in home leave, convalescent leave, and then about a year of physical therapy again to get back to the force. So 18 months.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, did they give you the option to get out?
They did. They tried to med board me right after I got my wheelchair and got back to work. Like my first month back, they're like, you need to do a med board because you can't do a PT test. I'm like, I've been laid up in a wheelchair for 6 months. You gave me 30 days. So I fought it, and I ended up staying in and continuing on. But right when I came back to work, physical therapy twice a week, all the doc appointments to get back to where you're in, I guess, fighting shape, even though I'm on a permanent profile. When I was cleared to do 100% again, that's when I started looking at PCS options because you can't be at Bragg and not running. So it's time to move on, and that's what took me to third ACR.
Yeah.
There you go. That makes sense.
It does because Bragg is great. Bragg is what it is, but you're going to run at Bragg. And prior to my accident, I ran my guys 10 miles a day every day, Monday through Friday, and it's just the way it is there. So. Yeah. Despite what you did previously, if you're not running, you could be, in any position you want to be in. At the time, I was a first sergeant, and still not running. It's not a good place to be. Time for a change.
Yeah, that's intense, man. I mean, I just thinking because I had a back surgery, and they offered me to med board, and I was like, "Yo, deuces, med board me out of here, man." I
get an opportunity to leave. Okay.
Yeah, let me out.
It comes down to do you feel you're done?
Yeah.
And obviously, when the med board came up, you had the medical injury, but you also felt like you were done. At this point now, I still don't feel like I'm done with what I can provide to the Army and the people in it.
Oh, that's great.
So that's why I'm still here.
That's good.
Yeah, no, like if I would have I don't know, if I had the opportunity to get out between my first and second deployment, I would have stayed in. But fucking, but by the time I was done with the fucking second deployment, that's when a guy felt he was done for sure, and at least for me, and that was it. So
yeah,
that's the best time to do it. I mean, you got to listen to your body and your heart and your mind, and that's where it's all at.
it was my mind mostly. I was filled with what I like to call a whole lot of don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
At that point, and then I was just a fucking poison to the fucking unit. Cause
see, we've had this discussion before, and I think when we talked about this the same way, there's two types of don't give a fuck. One is not giving a fuck about the dumb shit that people bring apart, and that's a good thing sometimes. And there's a don't give a fuck about anything where you become the poison. I don't think you made it to that level.
Well, probably not. I mean, fucking, like I was still concerned about my fucking soldiers, but it was like I couldn't deal with fucking senior leadership and fucking, your army garrison stuff. You know what I mean? That was the real fucking.
I totally agree with you, and that's I think one of the things that kept me in so long is I don't like guys putting up with that shit. So now it can be a point of friction for those horrible leaders. And it's not always seniors. There's bad leaders at all levels.
No, absolutely.
And just being that buffer zone, and I would take the hit from any rank to keep my guys free of that, and that's what I still enjoy doing.
But I'm saying the bad leaders at fucking lower levels don't fucking bother me. It's the guys that actually have to fucking force me to fucking do stuff.
Yeah, fact.
When you got diamonds or fucking reuse or stars and shit like that, then it's fucking causes problems. But
yeah,
they're out there. I'm not going to say they're not. Like any organization, you have your good and bad at all levels.
You know what I think got me, Ryan, is that that I had buffers. There were some buffers, but as I was getting maybe 9 years into my career, I kind of lost all those buffers, and I was playing the role of that. But it just broke me down, man. Just after a while, I was like, I can't continue to fight every battle that comes across me. And I was too immature to understand like to pick my battles. And so I was just taking every battle personally, man. And, I never learned that in the military. It took me until I got out to look back and be like, okay, that's where it went wrong.
I have people that I work for, majors, colonels, always tell me not to pick your battles and not fight everyone. And I say that's bullshit. I'll fight them all because I'm going to be such a pain and they have to deal with, and no one's going to fuck with me and they'll leave me alone. So you become such a thorn in their side that they're just like, you know what? Fuck him. I'm not dealing with him today.
Yeah.
And let you go.
Yeah. That's a good policy then. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I know we talked before, but just whenever we was talking about doing the interview initially, and you said that something about that you're a constant gym rat, and I wonder what your thought is to being able to keep yourself in shape and running those 10 miles, and then once you have that accident to recover. Did that play a big part in it, or do you think it's just good genes, or was it mentally you doing something?
That's a combination of everything. You can't put your finger on one thing. So I just come from an athletic family to start with. But like I said, I always hated as a soldier where you have NCOs that are barely passing a PT test counseling you how you need to score at least, you're 300, you might as well score a 320 or whatnot when they can't do it themselves. That's a piss poor example. And it always frustrated me, even as a lower enlisted, to see fat soldiers walking around. You as a soldier, sailor, airman, Marine represent the entirety of the fighting force. So you should be fit. And the Army pays you to get fit. Air Force pays you to get fit. So why not optimize it? And coming up through combat arms, your E134, your whole career is on how good you know your job and how good you are PT. And it's a constant competition that we talked about earlier. So you're constantly trying to beat everybody else. And I've always carried that over as a leader. And, the harder you train, the easier combat is, and that's a fact. So you come up years and years doing that, then I had the accident, and that was a huge blow to my psyche. Run 10 miles a day, 220 Ks a week at least, swimming a K a day, to being in a wheelchair for 6 months where you can't do anything by yourself. That's a huge humility check real quick.
I guarantee
and
it.
It's hard to deal with. I never want to be in a wheelchair again. I feel for anybody who's in a wheelchair for their life because it's fucking miserable. But when I came out, I right away overdid it. I was cleared to get out of the wheelchair that day, and they said, yeah, take it easy. So I went and walked 2 miles on a walker, which broke me the fuck off the next week. Because I still have my left arm in a cast, so I'm like doing an old lady shuffle with, tennis ball walker, and 2 miles was way too far. I couldn't even move for the next 2 fucking days.
Oh, wow.
And then, physical therapy started, and you keep pushing it and keep constantly doing better and better. And it's a slow grind, but, knowing it used to be, a 10-minute 2-mile guy and running all this distance to try to jog across the street and your leg fucking hurts. It's hard to get over.
Yeah. Yeah.
But once again, setting that example for your guys is you constantly try to rehabilitate and get better. So you're in there all the time, pushing them and pushing yourself to set that example.
Yeah. No, man, that's I mean, that's exactly what it should be going on, and I think that maybe somewhere within my own career, man, I lost it, or it was lost around me or something. It wasn't that idea of competition wasn't enforced enough, or wasn't nurtured enough to actually get to where it needed to be. So I don't know, maybe that's just burnout too, though, on my side.
Part of the problem comes down to how they teach PT, and it's most people do PT because they have a PT test, and it's not the reason you do it. You do it to be a harder individual. You're harder to kill. You can go longer without food and water. You can sustain more of an injury, and you can recover faster. So the only reason I had the recovery I did was the shape I was in before, and that's from the freaking orthopedic surgeon. So it's a testament to why you do it. It just seems to be lost by that shitty leadership. It's only about a PT test, and not about just being a harder individual.
Yeah. So we'll move forward a little bit. So you've already done a Bosnia deployment, you've done an Iraq deployment, 2 Iraq deployments, and then where do you go after that? What's your next big move?
So we came back from 30th CR in 09. I got a call from Brant saying, "Congratulations, you have to leave the regiment." And I didn't want to leave because I was at the regimental fire support officer position. We were going right back to OND, and they told me I had to take a TRADOC assignment or TDA assignment. So I got sent out to lovely Fort Irwin for 2 years as an OC.
Yeah.
It kind of sucked because it's a hard job and it's a miserable duty assignment, but you learn a lot. So I did 2 years out there, was clearing. On my final out, they told me I couldn't leave because that was an operational necessity. So go ahead and re-in process.
Oh, shit.
And that's like getting the Army dick to the max. I tried to fight it, but since transportation didn't come, I had to stay for 3 more rotations, which were the most miserable time in the fucking world. Overall, though, great assignment being out there. You learn, I think if they took the NCO academies, whatever ANOC is now, ALC, SLC, and put you out there for 5 rotations, you'd be a way better leader than being in a classroom environment in any base.
But it's not Mancock anymore?
I never went to that. That's some good shit y'all did.
I never made E7, so I didn't.
No, I've been at E7 forever, so I went to ANOC in 04. So I was on the old school list. So after I left Irwin, I was trying to look for that next deployment. Still mad I missed the Afghanistan deployment in 05 because my accident. I ended up on orders to Fort Lewis to a LURS unit up there who was supposed to go to Afghanistan right after I got there. So lo and behold, get to Fort Lewis. You're going to Afghanistan, prepping for like 3 months to go to Afghanistan. You're no longer going to Afghanistan. Taken off the patch chart. Ends up, we couldn't do what they wanted us to do. So we were put on typical training rotation until we came up on some counter drug stuff on the southwest border. And then after prepping for that for a couple of months, we got scratched off that as well. Back to typical garrison life.
Yeah, it was. I'd say I feel bad for you, but I got to hang out with you for.
Yeah, that was great. I'll tell everybody, man. I spent a lot of time at Bragg, but Fort Lewis is the place to be if you're an outdoorsman in the military. I love that place, and we retire up there in a fucking heartbeat.
But that ain't how it worked out though, because you ended up back in Fort Hood again, right?
Yep. So when I was up there, my wife completed her master's, and she's been following for me for so long that she had to get her career online. So she moved back to North Carolina, and I stayed out there as a geo bachelor for like my last 2 years out there. So I was flying back and forth between Fort Lewis and Fort Bragg.
Wow.
So when I came time to move there, my unit was deactivating, and I stood up there. It's when the LURS companies went to LURS squadrons. So they ended up the squadron size asset didn't work. They moved back down to a company and went back to division headquarters. So I had to leave and went back as close as I can get to Fort Bragg, which was Fort Hood again.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
But this time it was another TDA assignment. It was an ACRC position with 1st Army.
Wow. Yeah. And then what you're currently doing, we won't talk about that exactly, but you've been over to Afghanistan, correct? So you.
Yep.
So
I left Fort Hood after a year.
Can I just hang on? I just think it's important to go back one time and just go over the career, right? Because it's pretty interesting. So you was Bosnia in 95, you were in Iraq in 02 or 03 to 04, and then you were in Iraq again 07 to 09, and then what was your first deployment to Afghanistan?
2016. I left Fort Hood in 2015 and moved up to Fort Belvoir. And since I've been up there, I've had a pretty much 4 months on, 6 months off deployments for the last 3 years.
Wow. So that's three times you've been to Afghanistan so far?
Yep, in the past 3 years.
Wow. You know, I was never in Afghanistan, and I wanted to go. That's where I wanted to go. If I would have stayed in after my back surgery, I wanted to go over there. So I'm real curious to what like kind of just your idea of, nothing in particular, but just what's your idea on the enemy between Iraq and Afghanistan? Like as somebody that's never seen the Afghan people or somebody that's never seen the Iraqi people, is there a big difference, or how does that even look?
I like to say they're worlds apart, but they're also very similar. I know that's a confusing statement, but you did look at the entire culture of the countries. When you're dealing with Iraq, you're dealing with a people who understand the global market, who understand being part of a global economy and the world stage. When you go to Afghanistan, there are individuals there that understand that, but the majority of the population only cares about their valley. They're very sealed off, not very concerned about the whole makings of the world. And that's from my perspective. I can't back that up with fact or truth or a citation. That's just what I see from my angle.
Yeah.
So Afghanistan is West Virginia, is what you're saying.
Cave-dwelling savages. Once again, my views do not represent the views of our government or this military.
Yeah.
So
no, but I mean, I
caveat that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, strictly your.
But they are.
Belief.
It's a hard. Anybody in the Middle East is a hard people. I mean, I remember traveling on the ground attack convoys and being, 30 minutes from any building. You see a dude walking across the desert with half a bottle of water with no shoes on. You're like, holy fucking shit! It's like 125 out, and this dude's out here in the middle of nowhere. No train to associate by, and he's just fucking walking. It's like that in Afghanistan. You just have a hard people that live in mountains up to 16,000 feet and function on very little sustainment. Just a hard life.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at 50 is the average age, 1 in 4 infant mortality rate. It's just a hard life over there.
Yeah. I thought that part that, like the Iraqis understand the global market versus the Afghanistan, as far as you see it. I mean, I can see how the Iraqis understand it, and then just talking to other Afghanistan veterans and seeing Restrepo, I guess, just seeing stuff like that, and you can kind of tell that it is a little more tribal than Iraq because it's more mobile. Afghanistan.
Yeah, they have the tribes in Iraq too, but I see it way a lot more in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to really see the tribalism in Iraq, you almost need to go out to the rural areas, like where you get the Bedouins and fucking the outskirts of the fucking big cities and stuff.
Yeah, but in Afghanistan, you see a lot. They're very closed off to outsiders, even the foreign fighters that are in there. There's a distinct line between who are Afghans and who are not.
Yeah. Can you tell that difference? Or could
I can't.
Yeah.
Especially when you talk about Central Asian states, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and all their guys, or Pakistanis being in there. They all look the same to me, but a person in their valley, they know what tribe you're from by how you look. It's that serious over there.
Wow.
We even joked when we were training to go there when I was up in the LERS unit that, none of these guys are tracker trained, but they're all tracker qualified. If you don't look right or you move a rock, they know it because they've stared at that same rock for freaking 8 generations, and they're very in tune with their surroundings.
Mm.
So if someone comes in saying they're X tribe, if they're not from that tribe, they'll be picked up right away.
Wow.
Yeah, I can imagine. Sorry, I had a little chuckle there. Whenever you say Uzbekistan, I can't help think of fucking Bo Rat and the fucking embassy.
Yeah.
Have to have a dick long as a pretzel can to get
like, fuck you, Uzbekistan.
Yeah. Yeah. So whenever I was leaving Iraq, we had just tons and tons of people just kind of sitting around, and you had no offense against E7s, but you had E7s that weren't in charge of combat soldiers and that weren't in charge of actual missions going outside the gate and getting after it a little bit, and they kind of just found a lot of little nitpicky shit to talk about. And is that kind of how the war in Afghanistan is going? Not so much going, but are you seeing something similar to that in Afghanistan?
I see guys like that all the time, and that's the way the military is. You keep people in because you can't kick them out. There's no reason to kick them out, but they're minimal achievers. And luckily, I work now in the other side of the fence, so you don't have that a lot. People are employed doing their job, or they find work to make their job better.
Yeah.
It's a lot less of that. However, if you go on, main base, you see people walking around every day doing that kind of shit. And it always gets on my nerves, even as a leader in the conventional army, when someone is looking for some nitpicky shit instead of making soldiers' lives better or making the mission better, trying to do some worthless shit.
Yeah. Let's say you brought up a point we were talking earlier, and you talked about them handing out speeding tickets over there.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Because 3 kilometers an hour over is going to be a life-threatening injury, and I can understand the point. Basic discipline, I got it. But some of those vehicles idle faster than that speed. So if you're not hauling ass down the street and swerving, I don't see any issue with it. Just pull a dude over, chew his ass out as an NCO. You don't need guys writing tickets. It just wastes manning that we need for other stuff over there.
Well, I mean, like I've seen that we weren't deployed, but we were in Korea, and I was test driving a fucking 577 that had come out of fucking maintenance. And they sound like they're fucking 100 miles an hour where they're going to. Yeah. And we were fucking going down this road, and there was this fucking E7 fucking, he was running or walking or whatever, and fucking screaming fucking, we go by him, and he's, slow the fuck down, slow down. And I'm like, fuck you, I'm going 8, you cocksucker, and fucking flipped him off, and we took off. And I didn't hear anything back from it, so.
Oh, I've been that guy. I like going red direct on soldiers all the time for infractions, and it keeps them on their toes. It's just a basic discipline thing, but there's a time and place for it.
For sure.
And when your main purpose is to look for those nitpicky things when people have real relevant missions, and I'm not saying everyone's job isn't relevant, but there are people deployed that have a 9-to-5 Monday through Friday job when the rest of us are working 20-hour days. You just got to know your place and know your audience.
Yeah, well, there's those people that go overseas and they're statistically safer over there than they are back in fucking post.
Yeah, and the thing goes too, how employed are you if as a leader with your guys if you're out there doing that?
Yeah,
I got it. You're policing the force, but there's probably something you do to make your own, cell, section, team better.
Yeah, but I'm not doing that right now.
Yeah, you should have been.
Yeah. You know what always got me, man? I always thought it was real funny whenever we was coming back out of Iraq and into Kuwait, you'd get like that E7 that he's overweight now, and you're like, there's no way you're going out doing anything, carrying any gear and being overweight after a year being up there. So he was just some guy sitting in the fucking air conditioning the whole time, but he would be like the guy that's calling off your names to get everybody going and just so gung-ho about it, man. I'm like, dude, I wish you had a fucking job while you were deployed, because then you wouldn't be up my ass the whole time.
Well, true, but he's putting all that energy into that job, and that falls back to the whole PT thing. The biggest thing you can do as a leader is set the example what your soldiers to be. So if you're fat, that's what they're going to be when they get later in their career, and it always frustrates the shit out of me. But those guys are there for a reason, even though they have a job to go forward. As long as they're helping ease my transition through their country or out through the port or whatever, I'm all right with it. Just don't be a dick about it to people who've been over in the suck for fucking 12, 15 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just say the biggest fucking, I don't care if you did a fucking bitch job while you're over there. Just don't fucking try to cuss me out or fucking, fucking try to fucking alpha dog me when you're fucking coming through your little fucking tiny little world.
Yeah.
That's the only fucking thing.
We was coming back through the Dallas airport, man, and we was standing in line to sign our leave forms, I guess. And there's the E6 up there, man, no combat patch, and it all just came back from Iraq. And he's like, "Get in line, single file, ass to nut." And some fucking private in the back yelled, "Get a combat patch."
Shut the fuck up.
Like, yo, come on, man. We're in the fucking line at the airport, bro. You ain't gonna have a standing nut to ass in the airport, idiot.
It's just 2 things the Army can't do is get in a single file line or get in alphabetical order. I don't give a fuck what unit you're in. That shit is not happening.
Yeah.
It was like that fucking. You remember this, Dave? Is that fucking re-processing fucking center?
Yeah.
And we sit through the brief and go through and, all right, get over here and get in the line on the right. So we all file out like cattle and get in the line on the right. And this fucking cocksucker comes over and yells, and what the fuck, kid? You're supposed to be in line on this fucking side. And fucking moves everybody over to the other side. And I look at Dave. I'm like, you fucking done? And he's like, yeah, I'm fucking done. So we just fucking walk out of there. Fucking some lieutenant's like, where the fuck are you going? I'm like, going to hell if I don't change my ways, sir. And we fucking roll the fuck out. Like,
yeah. Once again, you're trying to make yourself look good at your job, and I got getting shit running smooth. But if anywhere, that center on foothook does not run smooth, and you're not helping by doing that.
No,
not at all.
No. Well,
and I just didn't have the patience to fucking even listen to that at that point.
Yeah.
And see, that's the thing, though. That's the time to push back, because they're doing their job, but they're being ineffective and they're just being assholes about it.
Yeah, well, there's no reason to be a fucking dick.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, when it comes down to it, it's fucking. If you'd asked us to fucking go over there, we would have fucking gone it, and I would have done my own processing for that day. Instead, you fucking push back, and now now you just made a fucking enemy out of you.
So yeah, I'd have been the opposite. I wouldn't have left. I'd have stayed there to make that dude's life hell for the rest
just
of the day.
Not even fucking out process. Just stay there and just sit there and call him fucking names.
When he would leave, he would leave, I would have moved that line back to the other wall again.
Hey, he leaves. Hey, that guy doesn't know fucking shit from a fucking hole in the ground. But get back on the other fucking side.
Yeah. It'd be my purpose to make sure he was miserable.
You know what? In hindsight, that's what exactly.
Man, that would have been way better. Just to clusterfuck up the whole day for him. That would have been way better.
If nothing else, just for the fucking story.
Yeah.
And that's why I kind of view my role in the Army like that now, because I'm pretty much untouchable. I say that, but unless I kill somebody, I'm not going to do anything. But I got so much time in grade. I haven't been looked at for the past 4 years for the next rank. I give zero fucks about the dumb shit. So I'm in a unique position where I don't care. So it's pretty good, because I can give people a lot of heartache because there's nothing they can do.
I think that.
Oh yeah, well I was the senior E6 in the Army. I think at that point I was in for fucking 9 years time in grade or something like that.
I got 15 years this time in grade as a Sergeant First Class now, so even better.
Yeah, but
it is even better.
You know what, Ryan? I think that you said you don't give a fuck, though. But I mean, you can definitely tell that you say you don't give a fuck, but it's just about a certain segment of the military day, right?
We talked about this earlier.
Yeah. So what I was wondering about that is, how do you teach that, right? Because if I would have had this conversation with you, when I was 5-6 years in the military, I would have understood it better, right? And it's not even just the military, because whenever you get out of the military, these things transfer over to business world and to civilian world directly, how you lead people, right? So your bosses and things like that. What I'm really curious about is how do you take that knowledge and transfer it to a young, a new E5? How do you tell a new E5, hey man, you pick your battles, you do the things? How do you teach them that?
It's by daily interaction, and this is where you make all your role as a leader, from PT in the morning to what I said earlier about the biggest thing you can do as a leader is set the example. Your soldiers watch you all the time. Your junior leaders watch you all the time. So there's going to be a point where I say don't give a fuck. When I push back against all the dumb shit, the soldiers are watching that. And it becomes a point. You have a growing pain when you get to a unit, but after you've been there for a while and you realize your sergeant major you have now was a team chief with you as an E5, and he's like, what the fuck, man? You're still a fucking E7. And you have that rapport built. Your daily presence at work and how you fight is going to build that within your guys. And there's always the counseling sessions on it. I tell all my guys on the initial counseling, I'm going to give you a monthly counseling, E1 through E6. It doesn't matter. You're getting that 4856 because it makes your NCOER a lot easier.
Yeah.
But every time I talk to you, it's a counseling session. Anytime you see me do something, it's a fucking counseling session. And take it for what it's worth.
Yeah.
And that's where it's built.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Just setting that example just every day, just on the on the grind of just doing it. And you also said something whenever we was doing the little bit of just talking back and forth before we even started doing this, and you said you can't do this job for a paycheck, right? And I
you can't.
You can't. Can you elaborate on just on that, like the motivation to keep you doing that? Because I mean, dude, you've deployed what is it, 6 times?
6 times.
6 times, and you've been in the military for 2 decades plus, So, I mean, just that's an overwhelming amount of experience to have, to be able to do these things and to be able to motivate people. And you've had countless people underneath of you, and to be able to do that, man, it's impressive, So you have this idea, you can't do this for the job. Can you tell us what that means a little bit more so?
It all comes down starting with pride in what you do as a soldier. If you like what you represent, you like what you're supposed to be as a soldier. I say what you're supposed to be because not everybody in the military is equal. And I always hate when they say, well, so-and-so's a veteran, he should have freaking certain treatment. Well, that shit got kicked out of 2 years. He didn't serve with honor. He's not a fucking veteran. That term should carry with it a fucking term of, proficiency and a term of serving honorably. And I hate to take down the Army values. It's just when you're in the military, it's not about you. It's about everybody underneath you. And it took me 21 years of my 23-year career to realize that the Army doesn't care about me at all. It doesn't care about soldiers at all. They say they do. The only people that care about the soldiers and that make all the difference are the direct supervisors. So up into battalion level. Anybody after that is just too far removed from the soldier. You have to want to mentor guys. You have to want your organization to get better. You have to want them to move up in order to enjoy the job. And that's why I'm still here. I feel like I'm not done doing that yet. I still have more to contribute to raise these lower level guys up to their career and kind of set them on the right path.
Yeah. I had leadership in my career that were like when I was at E5, even as an E6 that were in charge or whatever. And it was kind of like, well, I don't want to train you completely so that you won't take my job, right? Like there was always that fear of if you get too good or you get too good or doing at something, then you might take my position. And that happens a lot in the civilian world. But I think that where it's off in the civilian world is that if you can train people to take your job, the organization in itself does better, right? So that mindset that you have now needs to be able to get transferred over to the civilian world so that we can get people trained up and make some of these organizations throughout the country better with veteran leadership.
I can see that, but the civilian world's completely different. How it's unique in the Army is most of you, if you stay in, most of us have a 20-year career. So 20 years no matter what you're getting out. So you're on a reduced timeline anyways. And a lot of your guys are so far underneath you, they're not worried about them taking your job. But you want them to be better at their job. They want to be better at the next level. And you want to be better than anybody else's soldiers.
Yeah.
So as you're deving this guy out, he might be your supervisor later on. I have 5 of my guys that I pinned E5, E6, E7 are now command sergeant majors, and we still talk and they still ask my opinion on stuff, which shows the kind of, I guess, relationship you build by mentoring them as junior levels when they're, CSMs and calling you for your opinion on how you'd handle it.
Yeah.
But to be fair though, I mean, to say you have a 20-year fucking time frame, that's not even true, because even in the maneuvers 10, 12 years before you're really fucking kind of phasing out of that.
No, I mean, it depends on where you go. If you look at the attrition rate, how many people are career soldiers, that percentage drops so much. And once the promotion is out of your hands, once you go to centralized boards, it's on the fucking 10,000-pound brains that's on the board, which don't always pick the right people. So no matter what, just watch your lane and do the best you can. It doesn't matter if people pass you or not. As long as your shot group is tight and all targets are engaged from left to right, you're fucking PZ clean. And that's the way to look at it. If somebody passes you, good. More power to them.
It's also a result of your fucking training too, and there's something to be fucking proud of that.
Yep.
I always fucking enjoyed seeing my soldiers fucking achieve. Not that I have any command sergeant majors that I'm aware of, but
and I talk so much shit to other platoon sergeants and my guys destroy when one of my Joes come up and smokes one of his E6s and everything. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to talk so much shit for the next fucking 8 months. It doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
To both that platoon sergeant and that staff sergeant. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I think you're right on, man. Just staying humble and allowing the machine to kind of move and putting your 2 cents in when you can and trying to make it as best an organization as you can.
Well, the thing is too, there's always room for 2 cents. And when I came in the military, my first NCOs were fucking pieces of shit. My E6 was worthless, and I beat the shit out of my corporal. And I finally got a good NCO, and I saw what a good NCO can do for a soldier in the Army.
Now, was that because he was a piece of shit, or was that because of your Italian upbringing?
Well, he was a piece of shit, and he made his rank by being first? He was a fucking wrestler in the Army, and he was also Armed Forces chess champion.
And he was Irish.
And I don't know what he was, but he made his rank on that, and he did not deserve to be an NCO. So we got an argument one day, just going to date myself here. He tried to tell me how to give him my Sony Discman so he could take it on leave and listen to it. It wasn't going to happen. He said, you're going to give it to me. I said, the fuck I am. So he tried to write me a counseling statement. I refused to sign it. Then he pushed me, and he apparently can't take it to hook to the jaw. So I had an anger problem when I was younger.
Yeah.
I won. Needless to say, he didn't get my Discman. So,
yeah, right.
You've taken my Sony Discman. The consequences and repercussions around
I had
here.
a problem with knocking people out, but I was proficient in my job. So I was operating even at an E3, E4. I was in an E5 spot. So,
well, how was he able to listen to fucking Jagged Little Pill when he went on fucking leave? Then
I don't know what he listened to. I hated the dude with a fucking passion. He's probably out of the Army now.
I just wanted to date.
Oh, I know. It's just what it is, man. Like I said, I've had good and bad throughout my career, but one thing I've always tried to do is give my soldiers a voice. I always tell them, all of us ain't as dumb as one of us. So you might have a better idea than me. There's going to be a time and place for it, but I'm going to spend so much time with them that I'm going to listen to them, because when I was a Joe, I knew better ways to do things, and people are like, nope, this is how it's done because this is how I want to do it. Well, we're fucking, using a fucking pitchfork to load sandbags. Doesn't make fucking sense. Yeah. Improve and get better. It doesn't make you less of a leader to listen to somebody junior to you with a good idea.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah. We always had lieutenants, man, that would come in and they would be scared to ask for, like, hey, I don't know this. And I'd tell them, lieutenants, ask every question you can, man. I mean, you gain more respect if you don't know by asking a question than acting like you know and fucking it up. Exactly.
And lieutenants are the best. I won't say the best and worst thing in the Army. They're neither of them. They need to be treated like shit. I know it's going to sound bad, but they need to be humbled by NCOs, because they come in the Army and they're automatically in this leadership position with no experience. Yeah. Now, depending on where they come from, they have this mentality where we're going to listen to me because I'm the fucking officer. And they're normally not good officers. It's the ones that are humbled and listen and grow, because you have to listen to your NCO's experience. That's why you're paired with an NCO your entire fucking career. Even the Joint Chairman Chief of Staff is paired with a fucking NCO for a reason. Yeah. You're that sanity check and that continuity. In their careers, they have platoon leader time, company command time, and maybe they get battalion command time. That's like 4 years out of a 20-year career that they get soldiers. The NCO, you're there daily with your soldiers. You are the interaction. You are they look to for help, not that fucking lieutenant, not that captain, not that lieutenant colonel. And they have to realize that on their end.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, man. I mean, honestly, I didn't fucking give an officer really any fucking respect until he had 2 fucking bars. That's when you start considering it, and that wasn't even a given.
And I don't need a signature for a leave form. Other than that, don't need
yeah.
No, it's just what it is. Like you said, the same time you get an officer, you as the counterpart NCO need to counsel that officer just like he counsels you. You say, look, you might be the leader here, but I run this motherfucker, and this is how it's going to be. Just sit back, listen to me, and I will make you successful. That's my job.
Fair enough.
And you don't agree to shit with the commander when I'm not there. You don't sign us up for shit without bouncing shit off me. I'll fucking train you. I'll integrate you with the guys, and I'll make you look good. That's fucking it. Yeah, I mean, it sounds what it is, but it's what it is. I mean, you're there to train that officer more than he's there to train you. Because even as a PL, he has an E7 or E6. He's got years time and grade over him. So he's going to train that lieutenant more than anybody else will, more than that company commander or men.
Yeah, well, I imagine, at least initially, fucking for that part,
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Dealing with soldiers and the whole works.
Definitely. Hey, Ryan, we're getting kind of long on time here. I don't know how much time you fellas have, but there's definitely something that I wanted to hit on is, so you've been to war 6 times, and then whenever you hurt yourself, you were trying to get to war. And then after your Iraq deployment and before you went to Irwin, you were trying to get to a war. And what is it about some people that want to chase that experience, right? Like, because I'm the same way. I stayed there just so I could deploy more and more and more, and I was always wanting that fight. Is that what makes some people be like that? Do you think?
I think most of us in the military are that way. I say most. I would say most of the combat arms are that way, because it comes down to being on the team and playing in the big game. No one wants to be the practice kicker and never play a fucking game. You want to get out there, and then once again, that's part of it. The second part is you want to shoulder your share of the weight. There's guys out there that have 9, 10 deployments. I only have 6, so I should be pulling more of my weight so they don't have to pull their 11th one.
Yeah.
And that comes down to selfless service again. Go as much as you can, because somebody else has more than you, and they need that break more than you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And plus, from my angle, I know I'm going to take better care of my guys and do the mission better than anybody else. So I'm going to get there to make sure it's done right.
Yeah. That's kind of why I did my last one, just because I was like, fuck, somebody's got to be here.
Yep. It's bad because I have guys of mine that have been deployed year on year off for their 15-year careers, and that's hard on any family. So shoulder your share of the weight, step up and take a swing. You know what I mean?
That's just a fucking crazy fucking amount of fucking deployments.
That's crazy.
Just to think of that. Yeah,
that's tough.
It's what it is, man. We have a small volunteer force, and we don't have conscripts like Russia. You can't send a new force in every time. It's just gotta keep doing it.
Yeah. So as we're getting a little bit long on time, Ryan, is there anything that that you wanted to talk about that we haven't hit up yet?
No, I've been listening to you guys' podcast since Tom told me about it, and I think you guys are on the right track to put other thoughts out there, so other active duty and veterans can see that perspective. And we kind of talked this during our pre-phase, talking about talking to your grandparents about the military. They really spoke about it. There's a connection between veterans that you can't share with a civilian, that you can share stuff like this, and they understand it more than anyone in the civilian world can. And I think that's important. That's why I maintain contact with the Veterans Motorcycle Organization, to keep in contact with the veteran community even when I retire, because we're a very unique audience and we understand each other more than the civilian population does. And I think it's important keeping the communication open between veterans and other veterans and people currently in the military, because that's the next step for them in the military. And you still have to guide those guys once they get out.
That makes a lot of sense too, man. The fucking veterans, just that fucking connection. Because, like, I got a buddy I went to high school with, and he joined the military, and I'm using air quotes here. He was in the Coast Guard for 20 years. But his dad did like a year in fucking Vietnam, and fucking I can go fucking bullshit that guy right now, and fucking we have a fucking like a stronger friendship really than fucking me and my fucking friend did,
And you see a lot when you reintegrate with your family, like even being in the military for so long, you maintain a persona as a leader, as whatever your MOS is. When you go home, you don't know how to act around people because they know you as before you left, not what you became. But however, you see a veteran, they're like, hey, where were you at? I was in this unit. You know exactly what that dude did, what he went through, and he understands what you went through. So you got to speak the same language, live the same life. It's a lot easier.
Yeah. It's I don't know. Something about it, It's fucking.
Well, I tell you what, Ryan, you've been setting the standard in the military for the past 2 decades, man, and we appreciate you being our very first guest here, and you've definitely set the bar very high for everybody else to interview to follow. And just my last question to you, man, before we get off here would be, what advice would you give your 20 to 25-year-old self?
Oh, man. That's a trick question there.
Don't stop drinking.
Bad things would happen if I drink. I got time and place for it. I don't know. It's hard to look back because, I look at my career and say where I wanted to be when I joined the military. I wanted to do other stuff on this side of the fence way earlier in my career that I couldn't get to because I was a single parent. I made that choice that my daughter over my freaking career. I wouldn't say something like, hey, don't get married, don't have kids, and carry on with your career first, because it's been great the entire time. I would just say you're going to hit some hard points. They're going to make you doubt your time in the military, or you're going to doubt people in the military, but keep pushing through because there's always a better side. The bad times don't last forever. And in the end, it's going to be all worth it.
Yeah.
Right on,
man. That was perfect, man.
I covered this before, but my daughter's got a year time in service now, my oldest, and she's currently serving. I try to give her advice all the time, but like a dumbass private, she doesn't fucking listen.
Yeah. It's amazing how kids don't listen to their parents, but somebody else tell them the exact same shit 10 minutes later, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's great."
Well, the
great advice.
Being for 23 years, you think she would listen, but no, some dumbass shithouse lawyer in the barracks next to her has a better idea.
Yeah, but you're also her dad too, and it's fucking just hard time listening to
you. Say that, but I'm more frustrated from the senior NCO side than the dad side. From the dad side, you can understand they're doing something different, but from the side I've been in the Army for so fucking long, and you're not listening, it's totally more frustrating.
I gotcha, but I'm saying if my dad was telling me something at 19, fucking, I'm probably not listening either. So
no.
Go back later on and go, man, I was really an asshole. I should have fucking listened.
Yeah, maybe.
Till you make that mistake, man. You're like, shit. Yeah. Pops knew it the whole time. Yeah. Well, hey Ryan, you know what I'd like to do, man, is as you're getting ready to retire, you got a couple more years that you're gonna pump out. But as you're going, if we're still doing the podcast, which I'm hoping that we are, I'd love to be able to talk to you as you're transitioning, because I'd like to be able to figure out how you're going to be able to take those leadership values that you've learned in the military and transfer them over to the civilian side.
I'm also interested about finding that out.
Yeah, I think, dude, I would say, man, that you're 100% on it. Is just making sure that the people underneath you know what's expected of them and continue to communicate with them. I think that's what's missing a lot in the civilian world, just in the marketplace, is leaders that understand it and that are humble enough to say, I don't know. Do you have a better suggestion? A lot of people don't do that. So it'll definitely be interesting to see where you go out in the world whenever you get out of the military.
Yeah. Hey, not a problem, man. I'm here anytime you guys need me, as long as I'm stateside.
All right.
Awesome.
Tom, you got anything to add?
No, that's it, man. It's just been a fucking pleasure talking to you.
Hey, big thanks for having me.
Yeah, brother. It was great, man. We appreciate it. This has been a Products of War podcast. Check us out at our website, www.productsofwar.com. We got some t-shirts coming up. We got some coffee cups in there. Got a couple of things to help support us out. Get some cool shirts, get some merchandise. And for Products of War podcast, this is Dave and Tom and Brian out.